Danny Koker built his life around loyalty to his crew, his craft, and the roaring machines that carried his name across America. But loyalty, once broken, can't be rebuilt with chrome or paint. Over the years. Counting cars became a dream-turned empire, until that dream started to crack from the inside. Behind the roaring engines and friendly smiles, betrayal, greed, and pride slowly crept into his shop. And when Danny finally spoke about the people who crossed the line, his silence over the years suddenly made sense. The rise of Danny Koker and the family behind the garage. Before the drama, before the lawsuits and quiet exits, Count's Customs was simply a labor of love. Danny Koker grew up surrounded by the sounds of engines and gospel music, born in Cleveland, Ohio, and raised in Detroit, the beating heart of America's auto industry. His childhood revolved around cars, faith, and family. His father, Danny Koker Sr., was both a gospel singer and a passionate car lover. When he wasn't touring with the Cathedral Quartet, he was in the garage teaching his son how to bring an old machine back to life. By the time Danny was a teenager, he was rebuilding engines while most kids were still playing video games. In the early 1990s, he moved to Las Vegas, a city that would later define his life. He became Count Cool Rider, hosting a late-night horror show where he introduced B-movies dressed like a rock and roll vampire. It was quirky, but it gave him a cult following, and his first taste of fame, that TV experience, later became his gateway to something bigger. He founded Count's Customs, not as a business empire, but as a private garage where he could work on his personal collection of cars. Yet his builds, part Detroit grit, part Vegas flash, caught attention fast. His craftsmanship drew celebrities, collectors, and car lovers. Then came his big break. Through his friendship with the Pawn Stars crew, Danny started appearing as a car expert on the History Channel. Fans instantly loved his mix of confidence and authenticity. By 2012, he got his own spin-off, Counting Cars. The show became an instant hit. Unlike other reality car shows, Counting Cars was about real builds, real pressure, and real bonds. Danny's team wasn't just a crew. They were family. But as fame grew, that family started to fracture. Some couldn't handle the pressure. Others wanted more money, more fame, or more control, and a few crossed lines that could never be uncrossed. Joseph Frontiera, the betrayal that shattered trust. The blow that hurt Danny Koker the most didn't come from an argument, a creative clash, or even a friendship gone sour. It came quietly, from a man who wasn't even in front of the camera. Joseph Frontiera wasn't a mechanic, painter, or designer. He was the bookkeeper, the man who handled the payroll, paid the bills, and kept Count's Customs running behind the scenes. He wasn't a celebrity, but he was trusted with something even more valuable than fame, Danny's faith in his team. For years, that trust seemed safe. Then, in 2016, everything collapsed. Court documents filed in Las Vegas revealed a shocking truth. Count's Customs had accused Joseph of embezzling more than $75,000 from the company. The allegations were not vague. He had allegedly used business funds to make a down payment on a Range Rover, pay for personal airline tickets, and cover his own luxury expenses, all while forging Danny's signature on official documents. It wasn't a mistake. It was a plan. And for a man who built his life on honesty, loyalty, and hard work, Danny took it as a personal betrayal. The shop wasn't just a workplace. It was his family. Count's Customs had always run on trust, on the belief that every man in the garage shared the same code. So when he learned that someone had used that trust to steal, it hit harder than any financial loss ever could. It wasn't about the money, one insider later explained. It was about what that money represented, broken loyalty. But Danny didn't just point fingers at the thief. He went after Randstad USA, the staffing agency that had placed Frontiera at Count's Customs, accusing them of negligence for not properly vetting his background. The case went public, and the media storm hit fast. For fans who saw Danny as the strong, unshakable leader of a dream team, the scandal felt almost impossible to believe. Behind the polished paint jobs and roaring engines, the heart of Count's Customs was bleeding. When Counting Cars returned to the History Channel, Joseph was simply gone. There was no farewell episode, no explanation, and no acknowledgement. Danny never spoke his name again. On paper, the lawsuit moved through the courts, but the emotional fallout was far greater. Frontera disappeared from public view, deleting his social media accounts and vanishing from Las Vegas entirely. It was as if he'd evaporated, leaving behind only the echo of his betrayal. In the aftermath, Danny changed the way he ran everything. The open, family-style atmosphere that had once defined the shop was replaced by contracts, background checks, and stricter rules. The team had to rebuild not just cars, but trust. Every dollar was tracked, every invoice verified. Danny became less forgiving, more cautious, and far more private about the inner workings of his empire. The theft didn't bankrupt Count's Customs, but it changed its soul. The garage that once thrived on laughter and loyalty now carried a quiet tension, a reminder that even the strongest engines can stall when trust is broken. And for Danny Koker, that betrayal didn't just cost $75,000, it cost him a piece of his faith in people. Scott Jones, the enforcer who walked away. If Joseph Frontera symbolized betrayal, Scott Jones symbolized conflict. The kind that doesn't destroy trust overnight, but erodes it piece by piece. When Counting Cars began, Scott was one of the first faces viewers saw. He wasn't a builder, a painter, or a jokester. He was the enforcer, the man who made sure Danny Koker's wild vision didn't run the shop into chaos. As the original shop manager and bookkeeper during the first 2 seasons, Scott's job was to make the math work while Danny made the magic happen. From the very beginning, the difference between them was obvious. Danny was the dreamer, the kind of man who saw a rusty shell of a Camaro and imagined a masterpiece. Scott was the realist, the one who saw the invoices, the missed deadlines, and the unpaid bills. He wasn't there to dream. He was there to control the cost of dreaming. And in a creative environment like Count's Customs, that made him both necessary and unpopular. His constant reminders about budgets and schedules clashed with the freewheeling spirit of the garage. While Danny talked about passion, Scott talked about profit. Their arguments weren't staged. They were the real tension behind the success of the show. On television, it worked. Fans loved the contrast, the fiery artist versus the cold accountant. But behind the scenes, it was exhausting. Scott's personality was serious, disciplined, and occasionally abrasive. He didn't laugh much, didn't crave fame, and had little patience for the looser family-style culture Danny tried to protect. He wasn't interested in being part of the TV family. He was there to keep the shop efficient. Yet that same dedication made him a constant source of pressure for everyone else. By the end of the 2nd season, the strain had reached a breaking point. One day, Scott was there managing budgets, keeping the builds on track. The next, he was gone. No farewell episode, no mention on screen, not even a passing reference. It was as if the man who had once been essential simply vanished from the Counting Cars world. Fans immediately began to speculate. Some accused him of financial mismanagement. Others believed he had clashed too hard with Danny or the network's producers. But the truth, according to later reports, was far simpler and less dramatic. Scott left to be closer to his family in Tennessee. He wanted a quieter life away from the cameras, away from the arguments, and away from the relentless pace of television production. In time, he opened his own business, Koker's Extreme Automotive, in Roan Mountain, Tennessee, a small but respected shop that still operates today. In 2021, he even appeared briefly on Netflix's Swap Shop, proving that his passion for cars never faded, even if his appetite for TV had. Unlike Frontera, Scott didn't steal or lie, but his exit was still a turning point for Danny. It was the first real fracture in a team that had once felt unbreakable. The man who brought order had walked away, and with him went the balance that kept the chaos under control. After Scott's departure, Danny found himself wearing more hats than ever: builder, boss, accountant, and mediator. It was a shift that quietly changed the shop forever. For the first time, Count's Customs felt less like a family and more like a brand, and the pressure of holding it all together rested squarely on Danny's shoulders. Roly Sabo, the fan favorite who vanished. Among the Counting Cars crew, Rock and Roly Sabo was pure energy. His thick Hungarian accent, wild humor, and infectious grin made him a fan favorite. He was the guy who cracked jokes while polishing chrome and turned stress into laughter. As the shop's lead detailer, Roly's job was to make sure every car gleamed before leaving the garage. He was good at it, meticulous, disciplined, and always upbeat. But in 2017, he vanished. One season he was there, the next he wasn't. No farewell, no mention from Danny, no closure. Fans flooded social media asking what happened. Then a strange report surfaced. Roly's trailer, filled with thousands of dollars worth of detailing tools, had been stolen in Las Vegas. He briefly posted about it, clearly heartbroken, before going silent again. Rumors spread that Roly's disappearance was linked to the theft. Some whispered he had clashed with coworkers or even been accused of taking equipment himself, though no evidence ever surfaced. The truth remains murky. What is known is that after leaving Count's Customs, Roly launched his own business, Rock and Roly Custom Detailing, also in Las Vegas. His departure marked another emotional hit for Danny. Roly wasn't just an employee. He was part of the show's soul. His absence made the garage feel quieter. And while Danny never spoke publicly about why Roly left, the silence said enough. For fans, it was a reminder that Counting Cars wasn't just entertainment. It was a real workplace, with real tension, mistakes, and heartbreak. In a shop where everyone started as friends, fame had a strange way of pulling them apart. Shannon Iikow, the quiet master, who walked away. If Roly was the laughter, Shannon Iikow was the calm. As Count's Customs' lead motorcycle builder, Shannon's work spoke louder than words. He was meticulous, creative, and devoted to his craft. Every custom bike he built carried a mix of artistry and precision that made him one of the show's most respected talents. For years, Shannon was a steady presence, the kind of guy who didn't chase the spotlight but earned it through pure skill. His builds were some of the best the show ever featured, but as Counting Cars evolved, so did its tone. More drama, more storylines, less craftsmanship. Insiders say Shannon grew frustrated with how production began to prioritize TV moments over real work. By season 7, he started appearing less. Then he disappeared entirely. There was no scandal, no fight, just a quiet exit from the cameras. For someone who'd spent years building both bikes and friendships, it was a bittersweet end. Today, Shannon still works in Las Vegas, building custom motorcycles independently. He's respected in the scene, attends events, and continues to live by the same principle that made him great. Let the work speak for itself. His story isn't tragic in the same way as Frontiera's. It's a quieter tragedy. A craftsman who outgrew the circus of reality television. His departure left a creative void. The show continued, but something about the spirit of Count's Customs, the blend of art, sweat, and brotherhood, seemed to fade with him. Mike Henry, the artist who needed freedom. To fans, Mike Henry, known as Horny Mike, was unforgettable. With his horned helmet, neon mohawks, and infectious laugh, he embodied the wild Vegas energy of Counting Cars. But underneath that eccentric image was an artist, one who cared deeply about his craft. As the shop's lead airbrush artist, Mike transformed metal into artwork, creating flames, skulls, and surreal images that became iconic. For years, Danny and Mike worked like two sides of the same coin. One focused on vision and discipline, the other on wild creativity. But over time, their creative visions began to clash. Mike wanted more freedom to experiment and push limits. Danny, as the brand's leader, had to maintain consistency and professionalism. The tension wasn't explosive, just steady and real. The demands of television made it worse. Deadlines were brutal, and art doesn't work on a schedule. Mike's creativity couldn't always fit into a 30-minute episode. He began to pull back, focusing on his own projects and building his personal brand, Horny Mike Designs. Unlike others, Mike didn't leave in anger. He still collaborates occasionally with Count's Customs and remains a respected part of the Vegas car scene. But his reduced presence on the show reflected a bigger truth. Some artists simply outgrow the boundaries of TV. His journey shows another side of Danny's leadership, learning to let go even of those you value most. Mike's exit wasn't about betrayal, it was about evolution. But for Danny, it was another goodbye in a long line of them. Reminders that success always comes with loss. Through betrayal, burnout, and creative clashes, Danny Koker learned the hardest lesson a leader can. Not everyone who starts with you will finish with you. The 5 people who once helped build his dream also tested his limits, each in their own way. And though the engines at Count's Customs still roar, the echoes of those departures linger like ghosts in the garage. Who was your favorite member of the Counting Cars crew? And which exit shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more untold stories from the world behind the camera.